Hey everyone, welcome to another cross stitch vlog. It has been about 3 weeks since Marketplace happened. I still feel like I'm recovering from Marketplace. It was very busy, a lot of late nights, very successful. I had a good experience with it, but it was tiring and my body has just not fully recovered from that. I don't even really want to think about it right now. I haven't filmed my Marketplace recap video yet, but I will do that soon. I just need to organize my thoughts a little more, I think. And lately I've been trying to, get back into the art side of my business, the cross-stitching side of my business, which I missed a lot in the lead up to Marketplace and having to really focus on getting things done for Marketplace. So to start off this vlog, I have a big finish. This is a pattern I designed called I Like Cross Stitch. I finished this on Tuesday. It's Friday now, so it's been a few days, but I still am in love with it. I love how it turned out. The theme for this one was cross stitch. I wanted to design a pattern that had a lot of commonly used motifs in cross stitch. Not necessarily in this decade, it could have been previous decades as well, but it was fun just thinking of different little motifs to add to it, putting them in my style and fitting them in this color palette, which is a really limited color palette. I think there's definitely under 10 thread colors in here, but there's probably 2 blues, 2 pinks, apricot color, 2 grays. Yeah, very limited. Mostly DMC, and 1 Threadworks in that center, that pale blue color. That's the Threadworks color. And there it is. I'm so happy with how this one turned out. I started designing this in December, I think. Started stitching it around that time, I'm pretty sure. This one took me a long time to stitch though. It's one of my largest pieces I've ever designed for sure. Definitely one of the largest. I'm not sure when I'm going to be releasing this. I have been thinking a lot about my release schedule. Prior to Marketplace, prior to doing physical copies of patterns, I was releasing things just kind of willy-nilly whenever I finished them. I finished the pattern, let's get a frame and let's release it. And that's fine, definitely fine for digital. That worked really well for me, but with physical patterns, I think it would be best if I can try and group patterns into, maybe not they're not going to be releases in the sense that they'll be matching or coordinated, but it'll be sets of releases so that needlework marketplace shops have an easier time purchasing those and supporting my patterns, carrying my patterns, saving on shipping costs, all that sort of stuff. So this will come out this year, but it's going to be a little bit later. I don't exactly know when. I have one other pattern in mind that I'd like to get stitched to release at the same time as this, but I haven't even started, haven't even finished designing it. I'm going to share some of that right now. Okay, so the pattern that I would like to work on next and would like to release with the I Like Cross Stitch is the orange dragon on the dark green fabric that I brought up in a previous vlog. I was having trouble with the fabric. I originally wanted to have it on Seaweed by Fox and Rabbit, and it's really pretty. I love the fabric, that's not the problem, it's just that it's hard to get. And I don't want people struggling very hard to get the fabric that I call for in patterns. So this is Fox and Rabbit Seaweed. I got a lot of suggestions in the comments, which was great. I ended up going with Arboreal from Cedar River Linen, and I think this one is going to be great in this pattern. It's more yellow than the Seaweed. Here's the Cedar River Arboreal, and here's Seaweed. So it has more of that yellow tone to it, which I really like for this pattern. I think that's going to be really pretty. It's got a nice even modeling, fairly dark fabric, which is what I wanted for this piece. So I'm excited to get started on stitching this. But first I have to finish designing the pattern. I've been working on it this week a lot. I think it's this week, maybe last week too, I can't remember. I have some speed paints that I'm going to insert after this little chatty bit where I'm going to talk more about the pattern and inspiration and all of that sort of stuff. I'll do as a voiceover for the speed paint, so that'll be coming up, but this is the fabric that I'm going to end up going with, and I'm really excited to try it out. I haven't stitched on any Cedar River linen before, but I've heard good things about it, so I'm sure it'll be great. I'm sure it'll be great. Before I cut over to that speed paint, the Dragon project, I want to show off one whip I'm working on. I picked up Cam the Stitcher's Summer Gothic Sampler. I hope that's right. I'll post it on the screen though. I'll post a picture of it too. I am changing it up a little bit. I didn't want to start anything too big, just because I am going to be starting the Dragon piece soon, hopefully, and that's really big. I didn't want to add to my whip count, so I just wanted something small. It's like kind of an in-between project, so I'm rearranging things a little bit. I moved the needle up here. I'm moving a stink bug here, and then I'm going to put a flower right here, one of the flowers, so that it'll create a nice, it can be like an oval shape, an oval finish. Beans, he's chewing on my thread down there. I kept to the colors that Cam suggested or called for. This is Muted Sedona 40 count linen, that's the called for. And then for the floss, Beans, they aren't for you, no. I kitted up from Stash. I kitted this up right before heading out to my daughter's extracurricular, which I sit in the car and usually stitch. So I was like, I need a project for that. Let's see. 760 DMC, that's not called for. It's just replacing one of the DMC. It's as close as I could get it. Same with the 841 I'm using is also close, but not quite the called for. 503 as well. I don't have a full DMC set still. It's crazy. 911 is one of the called for, but I ended up substituting in Threadworks color, which if you look at that, they're like the Threadworks color basically has that 911 in there, but also has some blues. So I thought that would be really pretty. This Threadworks color is 01059. I think it's called Mystic, is at least what I have written on the back. And I'm using Gentle Art Ragdoll as my white or cream color. And I think the other two, the two greens are called for DMC. And then the last one that I have that isn't called for is a Pirate Robin. And it is Fog. So it's just a dark, it has some dark blue, some gray, and black in there. And so that's what I'm using for the project. It's coming along, and I'm pretty excited about it now. I was originally going to make this a scissor storage / needle book. I'll post a picture of the type of finish I'm thinking of, but it's where there are two ovals. One is like the front cover, one is the back cover, and it has like a ribbon that you can tie it together. So I was originally thinking this can be like scissor storage. It has scissors on there. That's pretty cute. But while stitching it, I came up with the idea to use it as baby teeth storage for my daughter's baby teeth, because that is not weird at all. But it has a tooth bowl on it, so it's the perfect piece. And I think it'll look really pretty, maybe a little creepy, I don't know, but I'm not gonna throw away her baby teeth, so I might as well put it in something pretty. And yeah, I'm excited about that. I'm excited about that finish. I think it's gonna be, I haven't tried finishing anything like that, so it's gonna be fun to finish something in that like two oval booklet type situation. There is that. Almost done with it. I'm actually very close to done with it, so maybe I'll need to pull out another project before I get the Dragon one finished, because I don't think I'll have that designed. That certainly won't have the fabric or thread colors picked by then, by the time I finish this, so I need to come up with something else to stitch on. Another thing I have been working on is a commission piece, but I'm not going to share much about that or put any like footage or info about that in this video. I think I'm going to just save everything for one little video that I'll post closer to when the retreat is happening, because it is an exclusive for an upcoming retreat. So that's exciting, but yeah, I've been doing the artwork for that. I think I got to do floss picking for that today, that sort of thing. But let's go ahead and go over to the speed paint for the orange dragon piece, and I'm going to do a voiceover and talk about like my inspiration for it and whatever else I can think of to talk about with it. This pattern has been a long time in the making. I got the idea for this design back in 2024, summer of 2024. I was stitching on Sprouting Lupin's pattern called Unicorn's Garden. I remember Kat saying that she was inspired by these medieval tapestries. There's one with a unicorn in a little fence. I think it's called Unicorn in Captivity. And I had been looking at that, and I was really loving stitching on like the dark green fabric. So I really wanted to design something of my own that was inspired by that medieval tapestry. I've also stitched Tiny Modernist unicorn tapestry, so I really like that aesthetic, the medieval inspired pieces, and for that medieval tapestry in particular, I just like things inspired by it. So I started working on like the concept for this, and pretty quickly realized that I didn't want to have a unicorn in this piece. I think that the large amount of white or cream stitching was just scaring me off from doing it. You know, I had just stitched, or I was stitching Sprouting Lupin's version, and I just wasn't in the mood for really large amounts of that color of stitching in particular. But I still thought that like I wanted something of like creaminess in that color palette, because it was going to be on such a dark fabric and that'll just show up really well. So I came up with the idea to include a lot of bunnies, a lot of rabbits in this piece. Around my house we have a ton of little bunnies that like to eat the dandelions in our yard, so I just thought it'd be really cute to have the little bunnies in the little fences. I mean, the fences are so small, it's not like they're in captivity, right? It's just, I really like that, how cute those little fences are in the original tapestry, and in this piece as well that I'm designing. So I have these bunnies in this piece, and I had at this point kind of figured out a color palette too. I went with like orangey red colors to contrast the dark green fabric that I planned on using, and then I wanted to incorporate some other greens and blues as accent pieces in this design. So I had this color palette and I had like the little bunnies, but I didn't feel like there was any sort of like main subject to the piece. And that is when I decided upon including a dragon in the design. Now, this dragon, it kind of looks a little menacing, and it looks like it might want to eat the bunnies, but that is not how I envision this dragon being. I was reminded of a book that I read to my daughter a while ago. It's a children's book, and it's about a vegetarian dragon, so that's what I'm imagining for this dragon in this piece. It's a vegetarian dragon, the bunnies and the dragon are friends, so that's where my mind went. At that point, I decided to look up some medieval manuscript dragons, some of the depictions of dragons during that time period, and while I was searching around, I found this blue dragon with this really elaborate floral tail, or I can't recall exactly. I'm going to try and find the image again, but from what I'm remembering, it was just a really elaborate like scroll work kind of floral-esque tail, and that is what served as the inspiration for the tail of my dragon. And then of course, I don't like solid fills, so I did include some little like decorative designs on the dragon's body as well, a lot of striping, just some things to vary up that large block of color and make it more interesting for me to stitch. So that was all done a year ago, back in summer of 2024. I kind of just at that point didn't want to continue working on it and stopped designing it for a bit. I decided to pull it back out recently, try and figure out the fabric choice for this piece. And since figuring out the fabric, now I'm ready to, finish the design, and that is what I'm working on right now. One of the first things I'm doing in this speed paint, which will have already passed, but I'll just describe the process a little bit. I was trying to, first off, just decide how I wanted certain elements to appear in this design. There are a lot of not necessarily repeating elements, but similar motifs that appear in the different areas with the bunnies that I wanted to have a very cohesive look. So I was deciding a little bit upon that. Originally, in my mind, I wanted it to have florals that were kind of wonky and irregular, but I decided ultimately that this is cross stitch, and at least when I'm stitching, I do like to have some repeating elements and some little bits of symmetry here and there. I'm not a big fan of huge amounts of symmetry and huge amounts of repeating stuff, but I do like to be able to get into a rhythm for a little bit of the stitching time and then switch it up. That's what ultimately determined the style that I went with for some of the different elements in this piece. I still kept some of the more organic looking plants, like the trees in particular are still very free-formed in how I was drawing them and not much symmetry to them. But yeah, with some of the flowers, they're much more symmetric, repeating patterns, just to help with the stitching and how fun it would be to stitch the piece. I also wanted to include a lot of the little grassy hill looking things in this design. I've used that type of grass in aviary and poison apple tree, and both times I've stitched it, I've really enjoyed the process of stitching it. Just the movement of it and the different colors, how they play against each other and how you can change up the order of them to make it look very different and not too similar throughout the piece, but it's still very cohesive look to it. And the tree in this design is very reminiscent of aviary, weirdly shaped long leaves that are kind of grouped together in areas. And that's because I designed both aviary and this piece at the same time. I sketched them at the same time. So I was just in the mood for that type of tree shape. And I think it works really well in this piece because there's not a lot of room for a large branching tree, but it fits really well in those narrow spaces of the little, vignettes of bunnies throughout the piece. And with the bunnies, I originally had them all as cream color and was trying to decide if I wanted to include another color in there. And I ended up deciding on making them cream and a slightly darker brown. I guess it looks very similar to the wild bunnies that I get in my yard. They're all brown and they have little white underbellies. So that worked out well. The bunnies were one of the more difficult pieces of designing this. Since there are so many in the piece, I was having a hard time coming up with different poses for them. Once I started getting to the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th bunny, it was just okay, what do bunnies look like? How can I make this different? I don't even know anymore. I was very against the idea of just copying bunnies and, mirroring them or doing something like that. I really wanted each bunny to be unique. One thing that I ended up doing that helped me with that, trying to get different poses, was Googling for rabbit silhouettes, bunny silhouettes. And I think that helps with cross-stitch design, looking up silhouettes of animals in particular, because a photo of a bunny, you can't necessarily translate that well into a cross-stitch piece since it's such a flat image and it's such a small space that, especially for these bunnies, they're really small bunnies, it's too difficult to have it look like a bunny when it's face on, at least for me. Maybe that's just my skill level too. The profile views are much more simple for me to translate into cross stitch, so that's what I tend to do. But yes, looking up silhouettes of bunnies, rabbits, that sort of thing, it helped me get some different poses. I was forgetting the little, standing on back paws with like little front feet dangling. I totally didn't think of that pose, so I'm glad I got that in there and was able to create a little unique bunny for each one and not have to do any repetition. That was fun. This piece ended up having a lot more navy stitching in it than I originally was envisioning. I started out by adding in little navy flowers in like the background of the plants just to make it look like it's more filled out and there's just more happening. In the original medieval tapestry, the unicorn tapestry, there is just so many plants in the background, but they don't really steal attention away from the unicorn. And so I wanted to have that similar effect where it's just all these plants, but not all of them are competing with the rabbits and the dragon. So I end up using a lot of navy in this to fill in different flowers, add some like shadowing under the bunnies. I also decided to include some decorative elements in the background, just some fun things to stitch to fill in those empty spaces. I have a hard time leaving empty space, so those decorative elements filled in the space without drawing too much attention from the main subjects in the piece. Now I do end up finishing this piece during this vlog, but I did not take screen recordings for the final stages of this design. I got really sick at one point. I had a bad cold and I was still stitching and I was still working on this piece, but yeah, I wasn't in the mood to be feeling like it was work or feeling like I had to sit for a really long period of time if I'm screen recording. I do finish it. It's just you won't see it all as a speed paint, and I'll be showing off the full piece a little bit later in the video. It's now Wednesday and I have a little stitching to share. I was able to finish up Cam's Summer Gothic sampler, or at least the section that my rearranged pattern into this like oval shape. There is a big house. I'll post the pattern again, but yeah, there is a big house that I am not stitching. I just wanted something small to tide me over until I get into another big model. So here is how it turned out. I really love all the little motifs in it. Stink bugs are something that's very common where I live now, up in Pacific Northwest. Not something I ever encountered before, but we definitely have like a stink bug season where they kind of infiltrate the house, and not to the extent that Cam described in her floss tube, which you should go watch the release of this if you want the full story on that. But yeah, no, not that bad, but we do get a lot of stink bugs. And yeah, it's just a fun, enjoyable little stitch. I pulled some like finishing stuff that I think I might use for this, my finish, the little oval booklet finish. These are just some scrap fabric pieces, all solid colors in different blues and greens. And I think what I'm going to do, I have this little example of what I'm planning on doing. I made this needle book, I don't know, a long time ago, but I did some English paper piecing on the inside with this diamond shape, and I really like the look of that, so I kind of want to replicate that for the oval booklet with those green and blue fabrics. Do some of this style of English paper piecing and have that be like the back side of it, or like even one of the inside like pages. There's not gonna be pages, but like one of the inside ovals. I think that'd be pretty to do something like that with this style and this patterning for the English paper piecing. So I'm excited about that. I also found some lace in my stash. My grandma used to do like not counted cross stitch, just a stamped cross stitch, stamped embroidered kind of pillowcases and tablecloths. There's a lot of these in the bag of stuff that I have from her sewing room. And this happened to be one that looks like it was complete, but she didn't use the lace on it. So I think that'll make a pretty border for the pattern. Just a nice, thin, delicate lace. And I don't even know if that's visible. What am I doing? This is the direction I need to be putting my hand, like that. Yeah, and I think that'll be fun, especially since the pattern does have like white border in it that is meant to look a little bit lacy. I did not add that in for like the size that I was doing, but I'll be able to add in some lace on the border, which will be fun. After I finished up the Summer Gothic sampler, I pulled out my Dragons of Sumatra. If you recall, I talked about this in my very first floss tube. I don't think I've stitched it since then. Maybe a little bit since then. But I struggle with this pattern because it is monochromatic. It's a pretty big pattern for a monochromatic piece for me personally. And I just get bored of seeing the same color, stitching in the same color. I think I've noticed recently too that blue floss, like when a pattern is heavily blue, I fatigue of it even faster than other colors. I feel like I enjoy stitching the warmer palettes a lot more than blue for some reason. I don't know. I feel I've had my fill of blue after stitching Blueberry J. Like I don't need to go back to more blue for a while. But for some reason this was just like, it just seemed easy enough to pull out for like car stitching and that sort of stuff. And I think I'm motivated to stitch it since I've made the decision now to not finish the entire piece. I'm going to be stopping my stitching at this horizontal line. I'll have to remove these two little things that I stitched in, but I'm gonna stop the pattern at this horizontal line across the like entire width of the piece and just turn it into a drum. I'll still be able to use the stitching. It'll still look pretty. This is like under the snap is the top of the pattern. I think in this most recent session I finished, like there was border up here I finished, and then I pulled it down here and started stitching this. And so I have this section right here, which is not too bad. It's a pretty small section. And then there is some stitching on the other far side. I think I'd finish some border and maybe add in like a similar sized amount of stitching on the opposite side of the piece. But yeah, I think I'm ready to have it out of my whip pile as well. It's my oldest whip, 2022 start, I think. So I'm trying my best to whip down because I just noticed that I more often want to stitch on my models anyway. And I don't usually get back to bigger pieces like this that are designed by other designers. And it'd be nice to get my whips down to just like 1 or 2 large pieces that aren't designed by me, because I think that's more realistic given how often I stitch on other designers' pieces. I'll see more movement in those 2 pieces if I'm down to just a couple. So I'm not starting anything big from anyone other than myself for designing. And then I am just, trying to work on the ones I do have, the ones I do want to finish. This one is the oldest, and then I think there is one other one that I think I'm going to UFO, only because I have the tiniest start on it. It's the kit. I'll post a picture of it. It's a DesignWorks kit. I have the tiniest start on it, and I kind of want to play with the colors on it because the image that I saw when I was purchasing it was a lot more saturated, and the colors just looked a lot more fun to me than what the actual thread colors are in real life. So it'd be fun to play with those colors a bit, maybe try and do a little bit of a conversion, still staying true to the palette that is going on, but just maybe pumping up the saturation and increasing the warmth of the greens in particular, because I don't really love cool greens as much as I love stitching with warm greens. So I think that'll be a fun little challenge to do. And since that piece is like it's only got like, I want to say under 500 stitches in it at this point. I might as well just mess around with it and change it up if I'm not enjoying it right now. So that's all the stitching I have to share right now. I have picked up another project that I am stitching and will probably be stitching the next couple days. It is the commissioned piece that I mentioned, and I'm going to be waiting to show that in a future video when it's closer to the retreat, when it will be released. So I have been stitching on that. It is a smaller piece. I think I can get it done by the end of this week. I'd like to. I don't even have to stitch it. It's weird. The the shop is going to be stitching the model for it. I'm having a hard time letting go of that part of the process and not stitching it myself to check that everything looks like I want it to look before sending the pattern to someone else. So I don't know. It's not even necessary that I stitch the model, but I want to eventually, no matter what. And I figured I might as well stitch it now if I'm in the mood for it. So that's what I'm doing. I'm stitching that commissioned piece. I also filmed my marketplace recap video, which will go up before this, but I realized I forgot to mention something in that video that I wanted to mention, and that was regarding the reseller permits. So I'll just mention that briefly here. Before, in the preparation videos, I had said I'm going to be collecting those permits from everyone because that's what Washington State, my state, wants me to do, and I'm supposed to keep them in my records. But I don't know, I got overwhelmed with everything happening. If you watch the video, you'll know I had like printer issues, and it just felt like I couldn't keep up with emails already, and I didn't want to add to that by requesting permits from someone and then having to organize that information coming in as well. So I got up through pre-orders. I requested permits from everyone up until like basically Marketplace started, and then I was just like, and I can't do it anymore. So I did fail at doing that. I am going to be trying to collect them as people place reorders, if shops place a reorder. And then certainly if I get audited for some reason, which I highly doubt, but yeah, just it was unrealistic, I think, to try and collect that stuff during Marketplace itself. It was pretty difficult keeping up with everything. So oh well, next time. And then I also have ordered a frame for I Like Cross Stitch, piece I showed earlier in the video. It is designed to fit in an 11 by 14 inch frame on 40 count, which is cool. I love it when I do that and I forget that I do that. I still bought a custom frame just because I really liked the signed and numbered wood frames, and I like the colors they offer. It's a lot of fun, and yeah, I've always had a good experience with them. So I ordered another frame from Signed and Numbered. I'm trying out a new like frame style. I'm not sure if it's deep enough for everything that I do with my framing, but I'm gonna give it a shot. I can always tape the back if I can't fit tabs in. I ordered the frame in a rose color, which I'm not sure if that was the right choice. I do like the look of frames that match the cross stitch piece, so it's kind of like overall a very monochromatic look to it. So I think it'll be good, and I do actually think it'll look good in my like living area upstairs, so it's always good to have a spot for it to go afterwards, because I hang all my models on the wall, and I enjoy doing that. But yeah, I think that's where I'm at right now. I do want to work on getting the I Like Cross Stitch PDF like started, and at least the pattern edited and everything edited up to the point of needing photos for the cover page. I found that during the Marketplace preparations, like leading up to that, I didn't like having all of the patterns, like all the PDFs to create all at once. I felt like I had forgotten what happened during the stitching process, and it made me unsure if I was missing things. Like I always write handwritten notes on the pattern itself, like the paper pattern I'm stitching, when I make a change or I need to move something or change a color, remove it, add stuff, anything like that. I make a little handwritten note. And so I was kind of worried that I was like missing out on notes, because normally I create the PDF right after and I'm just able to like recollect that, oh yeah, I had that thing that I was going to change here and this thing here. That waiting to make the PDFs really kind of threw me off and made the process more difficult. So I'm going to try and work on that PDF, get it finished, hopefully get it framed up. I do need to buy some more like little flexi tab points for my point driver for this thing, the point driver. I ran out of the little flexible points that you insert in that's what gets shot into the frame when you use the tool. So I need to figure out how to buy them. I'm just gonna do some internet searching and see what I can come up with. I am back with a stitching update. It has been about a week and a half since I last filmed a clip for this vlog. I got sick shortly after filming that last one, and yeah, so it didn't film much, but I do have a lot of stitching to share, starting with a finish on my Dragons of Sumatra by Ink Circles. This is, of course, a truncated finish. I'm not stitching the bottom of it, and I actually think I left off a border on this side too. There's like a part of the border that I didn't stitch in, but that is my finish for Dragons of Sumatra. I don't know if I mentioned the fabric before, but this is a 40 count Picture This Plus in the color Truffle, I think. It's kind of a brown that's a little bit more pinky, not a very warm brown, definitely like a cooler pinkish brown. And that's it. I gotta figure out how to do a drum finish, but I'm not really in the mood to do any FFOing right now, so it'll sit for a while, and eventually I'll be in the mood for it. After finishing with the Dragons of Sumatra, I still wasn't ready to start stitching the model that I have now started, but I hadn't finished the artwork for the like orange dragon piece that I showed a clip of earlier, Speedpaint earlier of. So I was still needing to finish that up. Didn't have anything that I wanted to stitch on. So I picked another pattern to start, another small pattern. This one is by Shaded Stitchery, Nuri of Shaded Stitchery. It's her Closely Kept #1. And here's what mine looks like. I had this scrap of beetroot. This is the last remaining bit of the fat quarter from Cherry Magpie. And then I also stitched Nora Corbett Capricorn on it. And so I just had this scrap in my office, and it reminded me a lot of the Closely Kept series. So I picked up #1 because it fits on here, and it's like a small pattern that's pretty quick to stitch. I did some weird things with the stitching pattern. I'm stitching it in one floss, this Pirate and Robin floss in the colorway Gothic Raspberry. So it's just this one floss, but I did a checkerboard pattern with it for the flower petals up here. And I think there's a large leaf down here that I think I might do the checkerboard with, but I don't know. I might just make it like a stripy leaf because this is just so, it's a lot. The checkerboard makes it very busy. It makes it look a lot busier than the pattern really is charted as, but it was a lot of fun to stitch. I like stitching checkerboards, so that was fun. And so that's where I am with this. This is the 40 count Fox and Rabbit beetroot. While working on this, I was also trying to finish up that dragon pattern, and I did finally get it finished. I did not do any speed paints of the rest of the process because, I was sick, and a lot of the times I was just working on it late night and in very small little bursts. I wasn't doing very many long sessions on it. I would kind of swap between cross stitching and then just doing a little bit on the pattern, kind of a back and forth thing. But I finally got it finished, and I pulled flosses for it pretty quickly. It was a pretty fast process. I've already had to change a lot of what I was stitching, a lot of the flosses I picked. So I have this floss palette, and right now it's just DMC. I still need to head over to Threadneedle Street and pick up a couple of overdyes for the orange and the navy. Those are the two that I really want to have an overdye for. I'll pop a picture of the pattern here, but as you can see, the orange dragon is huge part of the pattern. So I think a variegated would look really fun for that. And then there's a lot of the navy in the background, making up different patternings. And on the bottom, I added this huge border section that's all in this navy, which I really like how that turned out. When I was making the pattern, initially I had that bottom section was meant to be like just more of those little like grassy hill looking things with just a couple of bunnies there. But I don't know, I was just kind of bored at that point of adding in the grass. And I figured I would be bored of stitching the grass by that point as well. So I changed it up. I added in like a big border section, and I don't know, it turned out really well. It turned out better than I expected. I even added in like the little center section of that border, there's a little unicorn because this piece was in part inspired by the unicorn tapestry. So I was able to fit a little tiny unicorn there. And I think that's going to be a really fun section to stitch now. But yeah, the orange and navy, I think really could use an over dye for that. I'll show you what I have already stitched up. I started this, I don't know, I think it's like 2-ish days, but yeah, I'm having to like skip over colors because even though there's only 2 colors for sure that I want over dyes in, I need to finalize these before I know for certain whether or not like the dark red is the right tone. This is kind of like an orangey red. I don't know if this one is what I need it to be. I'll need to pick the orange first, and then yeah, like this tan for the bunny, I am not sure if I want it over dyed, so it's kind of annoying to stitch it right now because I can't just stitch all the areas as I'm going, but that's where it's at. It's kind of, I don't know. Okay, yeah, that shows. It is a very like tonal at times. When I was designing the artwork for it, initially I had like, after I finished the piece, I looked at the colors and I felt like there just wasn't enough of like a place for your eye to land on when you look at it. It just felt very chaotic. Like all the colors were very similar in their value. So it just was hard to pick out like that center point in the piece. There was a time where I was designing this piece where I was really kind of hating it. I don't know. It's a very maximalist design, like a lot going on. A lot of little things, just jam-packed with stuff. And I guess I'm still a little bit on the fence, but I think I'll like it. I think I'll like it when it's all stitched up. I don't know. I hope so at least. It's fun so far, and I think when it's stitching up, like as it's stitching up, it's much more toned down than what the artwork looks like. There's always that because you're stitching it, there's always on a like dark fabric, there's always that fabric is always peeking through the threads just a little bit. Even if you have good coverage, it changes the tone of those floss colors. So I think that is helping a lot. And I did adjust the colors so that some of the background elements, like these large flowers in the background, they were originally like supposed to have some of the white of the bunny in there. And so they would have been competing a bit with the bunnies. So I toned that down, changed the flosses in the artwork a little bit so that there's more of a subject to latch onto with your eyeballs. Like you can see the dragon more easily and the little bunnies more easily. And the background is just kind of melds more with the green fabric, which is very similar to the unicorn, like the tapestries, the medieval tapestries. Like it has a lot going on in the background, like a lot of flowers and different plants back there, but it's much more, not as much contrast as like that unicorn in the center. So the only issue now is that this thing is huge. Like I did not realize how big I was making it, I guess. I don't know. I usually don't design pieces that are as large as this one. This has almost 18,000 stitches in it. And my plan originally was to finish it like by November so I could release it with I Like Cross Stitch. which means I have about 4 weeks to do it. And that's a lot of stitches for a 4-week period, especially on one piece. Like I'll have to be only stitching on this for the next 4 weeks and doing a lot of stitching as well. I don't know if I can do it. I will see. I would like to make it happen. I think also as like the weather's cooling down, this has like more of the fall palette to it. So I think it'll be a nice floss palette for this time of the year, even though it is kind of dark. That is the one like downside, but I don't struggle with dark fabrics too much. At least lately I haven't been. We'll see if I can get it done. I don't know. I'm gonna go to the Threadneedle Street today to pick up those flosses so that hopefully I can get this stuff started to fill in. If I do about 1 full page and then a quarter page based on how I have my pattern split up and how it's printed, I can get it done in time. So we'll see. I'll know pretty early on if I'm able to like keep up with that amount of stitching. I am going to close out the vlog here. I am going to be working on this a lot stitching wise, and then I'm also already starting to think about, you know, the next release, because that's just what you do. That's just what as soon as I'm like stitching on one, I'm already like, okay, but I want to start designing the next one, and I get excited about that, which actually helps motivate me to finish the models. So that could help out. But yeah, I have a couple ideas of new patterns that I want to potentially do for like kind of the Nashville timeframe. Even though I'm not going to Nashville, I do want to release a couple patterns like around that time. And there is one thing I just remembered. I finished up my Biscornu stitch, my model stitch. Yeah, it turned out so well. I'm so excited to share that one. I'll be doing the video later for that. And I actually was rewatching my last clip and saw that there's like a little sneak peek of it. There was like, it's sitting on the desk. So you can kind of see one of the halves of the Biscornu sitting there, although you can't really tell what's on it. But it is going to be for House of Stitches, their retreat called Halfway to Halloween. I'll post a little infographic that they posted on their Instagram right here. And yeah, it'll be exciting. I'm excited for that now. I still have to finish the Biscornu, like do the finishing, but that's pretty fun. I actually enjoy the Biscornu finishing, and I had a lot of fun doing the Happy Flowers one that's now a free pattern. But yes, this one, I like this one a lot. So that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.